Hello, everyone. My name is Judy and I will be interviewing Justin today. Hi, Justin.
Hello, pleased to meet you, Judy.
Yeah, could you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, so hello everyone. I'm Justin and I'm a law student and part-time English tutor. I really enjoy learning languages and I think this is kind of my passion for now. And
Mhm.
I also think that everyone should learn languages and everyone should join HYPIA.
Everyone should join HYPIA. I mean, if they're eligible to join, yes, they're
Yeah,
welcome. Yeah, so which languages do you speak?
so I speak English, obviously, Cantonese and Mandarin. I also speak Dutch, Afrikaans, and I also speak French, German, and Esperanto, but those are like not as good as my other languages,
Mhm.
and Malay as well. Yeah.
What I understand Cantonese, Mandarin, and English, but Dutch is kind of, I never expected Dutch from you. I mean, like it's not
Yeah.
common. How did you get started on that?
It's it's not a very common language that people usually learn, but I just thought it was quite interesting. I think one day, um, one of my friends showed me this meme on Instagram, and it was like, Dutch is a really funny language." Like, then I just got suddenly quite interested, and then I started learning it because at that time I was also trying to learn German, and I thought, oh, maybe this would be a good springboard for me to
Mm,
um, get into Germanic languages. And it seemed a bit easier at the time. And I also just genuinely really liked it when I started learning it. So
mm,
I think that's why, yeah, I started learning it. And Afrikaans is just, so I met some South African people. These South
mhm.
African people spoke Afrikaans. They told me it was very, very similar to Dutch. So we did an experiment in which I started speaking Dutch to them, and they replied in Afrikaans. And then over time,
Wow.
I kind of picked up the language as well. Yeah,
Oh, so when did you start learning Dutch?
I think it's about 4 years ago, 3 years ago.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
about
And
that.
before that, which languages were you learning?
Before that, I spoke obviously English, Cantonese, and Mandarin, but then
Mm,
I learned French at school, but I didn't really care that much about my French grade and everything.
mm.
And I also spoke Malay. Yeah, I think Malay was one of my first languages that I actually started learning, like of my own volition. So yeah.
Okay. So it was after you took French. I mean, you discovered
Yeah.
your passion for languages after French.
I believe the school system actually might have set me back a little bit
Yeah.
just because I didn't really enjoy learning French at school. And whatever little effort I put in it was just gone. Like I had to relearn French from zero because I didn't think school helped me that much. But
Mm,
I think there is a role for education, like language education, but I don't necessarily think it's being done very well,
yeah,
like at its current stage.
definitely. So you're from Hong Kong, and I would also like to ask, your native language is Cantonese, but is Mandarin taught like from a very early age or?
So yeah, Cantonese is my native language in the sense that I speak it at home, but
Mm,
the first language that I actually started speaking was English. So because my parents had a mentality where they wanted me to start speaking English first because they thought it would be more useful or whatever. So they kind of, I guess, deliberately started introducing me to English earlier than they did Cantonese. So I thought that was quite useful to me. But
oh,
let's talk about Mandarin because I think Mandarin is something that has been introduced to the school system quite long ago. But I think recently there's a bit more of an emphasis ever since, I guess, like the handover of Hong Kong to China.
yeah.
You have more of an emphasis on Mandarin education, and some schools even teach Chinese in Mandarin instead of Cantonese.
Hmm.
So some schools use a more organic method. I started Mandarin because my school had Mandarin classes. I know a lot of
Mm.
schools that do that as well. And a lot of parents also send their children to like have Mandarin tuition because obviously I
Mm.
think Cantonese and Mandarin are quite similar languages.
Yeah.
Like, but they are quite hard to learn in general. Like, for example, if you speak Cantonese, it's very hard to convert Cantonese grammar directly into Mandarin. Like, you have to learn a completely different way of thinking about things, I think. Yeah.
I see. So would you say your Mandarin is native level?
I'd say it's fluent. I probably can't say native because I don't come from a place that actually organically speaks Mandarin.
I
And
see.
I probably don't like a lot of the mannerisms, a lot of the expressions that I learnt were copied from like different dialects of Mandarin. Like,
Mm.
for example, mainland Chinese Mandarin, some like and Taiwanese Mandarin, like and Singaporean Mandarin. It's kind of a
Yeah.
mix.
Yeah.
So I probably won't say it's my native like it's like at a native level, but
Yeah. I see.
it's fluent, yes.
Yeah. I feel it's just a personal observation,
Yeah.
but I feel like people from Hong Kong, they have advantages learning languages because they tend to grow up with multiple languages. Do you think it's the case?
Um, so the way I see it, it's quite
Mhm.
interesting. I think if you're aware, like Hong Kong is quite a small dot on the map, and
Yeah.
a lot of Hong Kongers grow up with this mentality that we have to learn languages to connect with other people. Because
Oh,
unlike Anglophone countries like you know the US, like where English alone is often enough for just communicating with absolutely everyone, Hong
yeah.
Kongers kind of have this realization, this recognition that the world does not cater to us linguistically. So like
Wow.
there's kind of a strong incentive to learn other languages. So and English as well, like obviously one of our official languages here and like back in Hong Kong, but then it's our neighbors are all non-English speaking countries, right? Like for example, Japan, South Korea, that like English doesn't get you that far. So there's also a strong incentive to kind of learn these languages for travel, work, or even like just leisure. Know a lot of people who learned Japanese and Korean because they like K-pop, anime, stuff like that. Um, yeah, so I believe Hong Kong has a significant potential to be a polyglot hub just because of this linguistic environment. And obviously, our education system kind of requires you to have a basic knowledge of Mandarin and you to be conversant in Cantonese and English.
Mm.
I think that provides for a strong multilingual foundation. And additionally, many schools also offer like foreign language classes like French, Spanish, German. That's where I
Mm.
learned French. And I believe Hong Kong just kind of has an environment values that values multilingualism. So
I
therefore,
see.
it has a tendency to produce more polyglots. I think that's
Oh,
my point of view.
interesting. I've never thought about it that way, but it's an interesting perspective. And so you told me that you didn't enjoy learning or studying languages in the school system, but
Yeah,
how did you change your method when you self-studied or studied outside of school?
I think the school method is quite boring for
Mm.
many people. It's they focus a lot on things that you will never use. Like, for example, I know you speak a lot of languages yourself, but I'm
Mm.
not sure. Did you ever do like languages at school, like a foreign language at school?
Yeah, Japanese. I don't speak
Yeah, so
Japanese.
yeah, so I feel like sometimes when they do foreign language education, they tend to emphasize learning things by group. For
Yeah,
example, if you learn about animals, you have to learn about the names of absolutely every animal out there, like dog, cat, rabbit.
yeah.
My approach is more like I will learn it when I come to when the occasion arises. Like I don't need to know what how to say like penguin before I learn how to, you know, say like, oh, the weather is nice today because I want to speak to somebody. Like I think the method that I used was more organic. Like I
Oh,
basically when I started learning Dutch, I used the internet a lot to chat with people, and obviously I had quite a
oh,
small vocabulary at the start. And then I just kind of, when I wanted to say something, I would then figure out how to say that. Then, because those will be the things that are the highest frequency vocabulary that you're going to use in like daily conversation. So those are the most important things you're going to have to learn, rather than by group, like, oh, today we're going to learn how to count, like how to use all the numbers. Today we're going to learn all the colors, all the whatever. It's easier to learn a bit of everything than add to it, rather than having to learn everything like completely at the like on your
Mhm.
first time. So I think that's the first thing I would change. The second thing is that I think a lot of their learning is quite, oh, you have to remember this, you have to remember
Yeah.
that. While uh, grammar is more like, I think at some point, if you learn it correctly, it should not be something you think about constantly. If you think about, for example, in Dutch, if you think about how to conjugate something by using a formula, I think you've failed basically, because you kind of have to start thinking in a way that it just comes naturally to you, like it sounds right. And I think
Mm.
that's quite important. That also saves a lot of time, because it saves a lot of frustration, a lot of time. It's just you can mimic. I think that is easier than just having to
Mhm.
cram like many rules. Like for example, I'm learning Japanese at the moment. Like it's an
Mhm.
agglutinative language. You have a lot of endings. A lot of the time, when you just watch Japanese shows, you'll kind of get like what they're getting at without having to learn the specific ending for a certain like expression. So I think you could kind of use that approach for every single language. Just mimic and try to understand, rather than try to cram a bunch of like foreign rules into your head. I think it makes it much easier and much more enjoyable. Puts
Yeah.
off like way less people. Yeah.
That's interesting, the part about groups, because at school you would often get tested on that, quizzes, and that's very stressful. So do
Yeah.
you practice Dutch like often with your friends or?
So one of my best friends is Dutch, so we only ever speak Dutch unless we want to have like high level linguistic discussions. But yes, I do use Dutch a lot in my daily life. In fact, in my university, in the Dutch society, I'm teaching Dutch classes, so it's quite
To to
like
students?
to beginners, yeah, to some beginners. But
Wow, that's so
so
cool.
it's kind of something I use quite a lot, and I also engage a lot with Dutch media. Like my phone is in Dutch, like as in settings, and
Wow.
I get my news in Dutch. I think increase like this is the easiest way to increase exposure to the language. So yeah, I use
Wow.
Dutch quite a lot compared to
Wow.
other languages. Yeah,
And you're learning Japanese right now, and do you have Japanese friends to practice with, or?
I have one,
Yeah.
and no, like I don't practice Japanese as much. I'm trying to leverage my knowledge of like the Chinese characters to
Yeah, yeah,
basically learn more vocabulary at the start, so it becomes easier towards the end.
yeah.
So yeah,
You could do that with Korean as well.
yeah, I'm aware, but I've not come to Korean yet. I'm sure I will start in a bit, but yes,
I see. And also, you told me that you're a law student, right?
yes, yes.
And also, I'm just interested because I'm a law student as well.
Yeah.
What led you to law?
Honestly, I think law is something that is like, I think if you like languages, you like dealing with words and stuff like that,
Yeah,
right? And then
exactly.
law
Yeah.
is basically using that and making it into a profession. So
Yeah.
I think, yeah, that's what led me to law. Like it's a lot of people say something like, oh, they're passionate about the law, they're passionate about justice. I honestly like I feel like that's kind of an excuse, because if you want to become a lawyer, most of the time you're just interpreting things and trying to check things. Like a lot of the things that you do is kind of irrelevant to whether you someone gets justice or not. Like it's
Yeah.
mostly about like understanding what this is about, understanding words, applying words creatively, applying concepts creatively, which is kind of similar to language learning in a way. Like you apply grammatical concepts. So I think
Yeah. Yeah.
these are quite similar things, and to me this is just something that I guess I could get behind. Yeah.
Exactly. And I don't know if you liked math, but I really didn't. So something that
Yeah.
doesn't
I mean, I
require
liked
math.
maths.
So yeah,
Maths is fine.
yeah. And then how did you find out about HYPIA and the polyglot community?
So, as for HYPIA, I think one of my friends told me about it. One of my friends said, "Oh, this looks like a really cool community," and obviously, I think it was on the website that they said, you have these like little meetings with people, you have this kind of community, you'll chat about languages, and honestly, because most of my friends don't care about languages as much as I do,
Yeah.
so I feel like I need not that I need new friends to like replace them, but I wanted to talk to people about languages. So
Yes.
that's when they were like, "Oh, like look at this," and I was like, "Oh, actually, I think I speak enough languages to join this." So I decided to shoot them an email and say, "Hey, I
Mhm.
would like to join," and it turned out pretty well because I actually quite enjoy reading the group chat, like
Mm.
a lot of the stuff, like the discussion is really interesting. Um, I talk to so many people about like things that I find very, very interesting in languages, and they just don't care. So it's really nice to have a community which also kind of, I guess, geeks out about a certain thing.
Mm. So, yeah, HYPIA is a great group, and polyglot gathering conferences, those are very nice events. And since you're learning Japanese, you said you wanted to try Korean as well. And are there any
Yeah.
other languages that you want to try learning?
Right. So because currently I'm learning quite a lot of languages, so
Yeah.
I'm yeah, so Japanese is just recently because I found out about um something like basically I came across a show that I really liked as a kid and I really wanted to watch it in its original kind of like intended method of enjoyment. So I wanted
Mm.
it's kind of like a heat of the moment thing. I was so much more into learning Japanese than I was before. But I've actually tried learning Japanese when I was a kid. My parents sent me to Japanese school actually, but
Wow.
I just it was not a good environment as well. Like it was very boring, so we left. But yes, I am learning other languages. So for example, German is something that I'm actively learning as well. Like trying to improve. Although I already speak it like to I guess a conversational level. I'm
Oh,
trying to improve because German grammar is really, really hard. I'm
yes.
also trying to learn Danish, um,
Hmm.
and that's more of a linguistic challenge more than anything because I was just really fascinated about the phonetics of Danish. Uh, I'm also trying to learn Russian, which is also something that I've already tried to learn before, but I haven't done it successfully. So I'm trying to redo it, and yeah, so these are currently the languages that I'm trying to learn or am learning currently, yeah.
Cool. And my last question is, do you have any advice for language learners or, yeah, people who are interested in languages?
Um, I think my advice would be, basically try to find ways around things that put you off from learning languages. A lot of people tell me that they actually really want to learn a new language, but they don't know how to. And I think that's a very valid, like, question or very, very valid, like, sentiment because right now what we have, like for example, how most people come across their first foreign language is through the
Mhm.
school system, and I don't think that works very well for many people. um, I believe you should find your own method of learning. Everyone has a different approach to it. Everyone has a different preferred mode of learning.
Mhm.
For some people, it's apps like Pimsleur, like it's the audio input, and for some people, it's more
Mhm.
like reading is important, or they really like reading. Just find the thing that you like, then you will be able to learn it. because obviously if you want to do something and if you find a way that benefits you and find a way that suits you, I think it's just a matter of time. So just go through with it and find a way that works for you, and you will be able to learn the language that you want.
Cool. Thank you for your advice. And yeah, it was a pleasure interviewing you. And I hope to see you
Yeah.
at the gathering.
Yeah, I hope to see you
Thank
too.
you.